Yo, before we get into the video, I just wanted to quickly say, make sure you guys go check out my free EBK drum kit. I'll leave a link in the description for that. And I'm also working on a little baby drum kit, which is also going to come out soon, so stay tuned for that one. But without any further ado, let's get right into the video. What's up, y'all? It's your boy Santi. Today we're going to be making a little baby type beat, as you can tell from the title of this video. I already have the beat cooked up, as you can see, but what I'm going to be doing is we're going to do a breakdown of the beat, show you how I made the melody, the drums, and whatnot. So yeah, let's just get right into it. Alright, so first of all, we'll start with the melody over here. So it's a simple, actually believe it or not, it's a Flex plugin, stock FL plugin. On the close grand right here, all I did was just put the darken knob to the max. This is what it sounds like. And I actually also added a little bit of reverb right here. And on top of that, I added a compressor, this compressor right here, and Fruity Parametric EQ, and then a very simple soft clipper right there. So this is how the melody sounds. There's actually two variations to it. So this is the first one. And then here is the second one. So for the melody itself, I actually got this piano pattern from a MIDI pack, which is right here. And I basically just flipped it and rearranged it a little bit just so it sounds a little more unique. And then I also pitched it up a little bit. Same thing with the second pattern right here. Just to add a little bit of variety so it doesn't sound too repetitive. So moving on to the drums, I actually started off with the hi-hats on this beat. And the hi-hat pattern sounds like this. And it's actually a really simple hi-hat pattern. I just added a little bit of sauce here and there just to make it a little bit more bouncy. The main goal with this hi-hat pattern was to make it not too complicated, but not too simple. Kind of to, you know, make it a little bit more interesting and unique. So yeah, just added a few rolls here and there. Other than that, it's just the same triplet repeating itself over and over and over again, as you can see. So yeah, so a huge tip that I usually tell people with hi-hats especially is actually changing up the velocity and like randomizing it a little bit. So as you can see, the velocity here is all kind of random and like weird. So the easiest way of actually getting a randomized velocity, like instead of having to go there one by one adjusting it, you can actually just select all of your hi-hats and then press, for me it's Option R, so I think it'll be Control R or Alt R or Shift R on a Windows, but Option R, and here you have a randomizer. When you open it, it might look like this. All you have to do is just uncheck pattern and then check levels, and then here the pan and the levels of the velocity, you can adjust them, and it'll just add it'll make your hi-hats sound less robotic and more like professionally done rather than super like computerized. With these little baby beats, you really want to use triplets on your hi-hat patterns, on your 808 patterns, because it really adds that bounce and that swing that you can hear in a lot of little baby songs. Not every single beat has to be the same with the triplets. Kind of just play around with it, you know, make it sound just like bouncy, you know what I mean? And that's like the biggest thing with the little baby beats. Bouncy, adding triplets, you know, rolls, snare rolls, hi-hat rolls, but don't overdo it, because once you overdo it, it just sounds too complicated and it's harder for the rapper or the artist to rap on it. So moving on with the clap, again, extremely simple clap pattern. It's just repeating every other bar. I'm not going to listen to the whole thing because it's all the same. And right after that, we move on to the perks. So we have this perk right here. Just a rim perk. Again, just bouncing off the claps. And if we put that in context with the claps, it sounds like this. Super simple. Now moving on with the 808s, this is where it gets fun. This is my personal favorite part of a beat, the 808, you know, the body of the beat. This is where it gets a little bit more complicated, but still relatively simple. You know, you can have a little more fun with this if you know how to mess around with them. So first of all, the biggest 808 thing that I hear in Lil Baby beats or any other beats is when their 808s just isn't hitting. That's like a huge problem with producers, especially beginner producers. They just don't know how to make their 808 hit or bounce. So here's some free sauce that I actually learned from Hocus. Hocus Crazy, shout out to him. Again, shouted him out last video as well. But anyways, what you want to do is you just go into your 808, turn the volume down quite a bit. I put mine down at 25% for this specific 808 and this specific beat. Then you're going to go over to your boost, and I actually boosted this one 19%. I usually boost them around 14 to 20% depending on, you know, how distorted it sounds. But this one sounds pretty good like this. So this is what the 808 pattern sounds like. So I'm sure you noticed the 808 roll right here that adds the bounciness to it. And the triplet right there with the 808s that also collides with the hi-hat, or I guess goes together with the hi-hats. And there's a bunch of those triplets throughout the whole 808 pattern and those rolls, as you can see over here. So triplets, 808 rolls, chef's kiss for these type of beats. Honestly, super good, especially if you know how to make the 808s hit and bounce the right way. Okay, so moving on to another perk. The second perk that I used are actually some lasers, and I'm pretty sure another one, yeah, a clav. So the laser and the clav, so this is that perk pattern right here, and then the clav. So again, triplets for the clav and the laser, and these kind of just give a little bit of accent to the whole beat. You know, there's repeating throughout the whole thing. Super easy, super simple, honestly. Like, it's really not that complicated. So yeah, that's basically like the main components of the entire beat, other than the arrangement and my tag and the effects. The effects I used are just this like riser bell. So yeah, it's just a reversed bell that then drops into a normal bell. And then I have these two risers right here. That one and this one. And then once the beat actually drops, there's this perk right here. It's like another little high-pitched bell that also just adds more effect to the beat. And these effects actually just loop again over here, minus the one. And that's that for the effects. So coming back to the 808, actually, I just remembered that I put a reverse 808 in here. So that's what these little automation clips are, these 3 automation clips. So the reverse 808 just plays layered on another 808 like this. And I don't know if you noticed, but it actually pans from one ear to another. And it just, you know, adds a little more depth, a little more bounce and a swing to the beat. So that's that right there. And overall, the last thing really is just the arrangement of the beat. So we have the first variation of the piano coming in right here. Then we have the second variation of the piano playing for 2 whole bars right there. Then it switches back, and then you kind of just have a back and forth going, just so it doesn't get super repetitive. You know what I mean? So just like this. There's that FX that I was talking about earlier. And with the arrangement, you know, it's important to add a little bit of cuts here and there. Eventually, when your artist is going to be rapping on it, it's also adding more depth, more effect when the beat cuts and it's only his voice, only her voice, and or the melody, as you can hear right here. So there it cuts, you know. These little tiny details are super small but super important, and this is what really builds a beat, because, you know, nowadays people tend to overcomplicate their beats and they'll do too much on the hi-hats, or they'll do too much on the 808s or the snares, when in reality you don't even need to do all that. All you really need to do is have good arrangement, good sound selection, and just know, you know, the style of the artist that you're trying to produce for. Of course, Lil Baby, you can go on any of his songs and kind of listen, and you can find a pattern with his production style, his producers and whatnot. So that's exactly what I did here. Kind of mimicked and copied that style with the triplets again, the rolls, the effects, like the breaks and all of that, the cuts. Super important, and that's like what keeps the beat alive, even though it's super simple. So yeah, that's basically the whole beat right there. The only other thing that I would say really is just I added a volume effect so that it fades out at the end, but that's not really necessary. Like, you know, you can do it if you want, but it doesn't really change too much. So yeah, that's the whole beat right there. And if you guys have any recommendations for any type beats you want to see, or you want any specific tutorials, just make sure you drop those down in the comments, and make sure you subscribe, like the video, and I'll definitely be back with some more Lil Baby, some more EBK type shit, and a bunch of other stuff. Finally, don't forget to go check out my free EBK drum kit that is on my BeatStars. Again, I'll leave a link in the description for that. And I'm also going to be making and releasing a Lil Baby drum kit, a Lil Durk drum kit, you know, trap type of drum kit, Nardo Wick, some shit like that. So stay tuned for that. But without any further ado, I'll catch you guys on the next one.